Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Security Squawk podcast. I'm Bryan Hornung, and today I got both my cyber partners in crime, Randy and Bryan, and making his return to the show, the one and only Andre. What's up, gentlemen?
Did you miss me?
We did.
Of course.
So Randy's been holding down the fort here for a little bit with me, but now the band's back together. Andre, man, glad to have you back. Hope you didn't get breached while you were gone.
No. And if I did, I'll probably tell you 2 years from now on a Friday.
What's that?
If I did get breached, I'll tell the world 2 years from now on a Friday.
Nice.
Wow. Right before 4th of July.
Yeah, exactly.
And no personal information was accessed, correct?
Yeah, nothing to worry about.
All right, guys, we got a loaded show this week. Clearly, another story to get through since we have Andre back with us. So, high level, we're going to talk about a major airline breach. It's leaking over 1 million travelers' data. A government AI screw up that literally uploaded victims' personal information into ChatGPT. And we're going to talk about ransomware's resurgence that's hitting wallets harder than ever as insurance coverage dries up. And we're going to talk about what's behind that in combination with all the other things that we always talk about on this show around statistics and what's going on with ransomware and what businesses are actually doing to protect your data and what they're not doing. So let's jump right into the turbulence as Randy's going to hit us up with
turbulence.
Yeah, that's all right, buddy. With the story here out of WestJet, Canada's second largest airline, got hit with a data breach that exposed 1.2 million customers. That's names, birth dates, travel documents, and more. Give us the flight path of this mess, Randy.
Wow, way to go. Way to bring in those little puns, right? Pretty good flyby with those, man. So anyway, this WestJet. So WestJet's officially based out of Canada, and I know that we do 95% of our stuff we discuss is USA based, but I felt like this was a good one to talk about because, one, we don't know who exactly is behind this as of my research yesterday evening.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, this was about the time back in June when this happened that Scattered Spider was involved in a bunch of hacks in the aviation industry. So potentially points to that. Also, they said, WestJet said that they were breached by social engineering people. Someone called in and said they lost their password, had really good English, understood what was going on, was able to get their password reset. And then that's how they got into that. WestJet had a way for the employees to connect called Citrix. It's like a little virtual desktop kind of thing. And anyway, the bad guys were able to get into the employees' Citrix. And once they were in there, they were able to spread across the network. So that caught my eye. The fact that it happened in June, the fact that there was really good social engineering. WestJet has said this is a sophisticated actor that's in the systems. The other thing, though, that caught my eye was typically we're talking about, the name, the birth date, some things like that. Some of that stuff, or maybe like we're talking about credit card numbers, things like that. This particular leak involved passport photos and government ID photos. The stuff that's in this leak of the 1.2 million passengers, the stuff that's in this leak could be potentially used to reset people's phone accounts and gain access to all kinds of stuff. potentially like bank accounts and things like that. Like, I've got an ID, I've got this, I've got all this other information. So that makes this one especially egregious. And then throwing in a whole nother caveat, Brian, then I'm going to wrap it up with this. The bad actors were able to get into part of WestJet, and it doesn't look like they were able to get into everything. And it makes me wonder, was there some segmentation going on, which Brian talks about that a lot. We talk about that a lot on the show in general, where you protect your IT systems from each other. So if they get into one, they don't automatically get into everything else. The keys to the kingdom are spread around, if you will. But because of some areas not getting hit, I wonder if they have that going on. It's a little early to tell, but that's a potential there. You know me, I always try to hope for the best in these situations. So that's pretty much all I have for that. What do y'all, any comments y'all have on this particular incident?
Yeah. Appreciate that breakdown, Randy. You know, it's bad when the airlines have to clarify, but we didn't lose your credit card info. That's not the flex that they think it is here, you know? So some things that correct me if I'm wrong, that I picked up when I was looking at the article when you sent it over. They found this on June 13th, right? After suspicious network activity, personal data, passport data leak, but no payment data. And they're going to offer identity protection. So do we know who's behind this? Are we thinking Scattered Spider? They're saying they're being tight-lipped, or they're saying like it's a sophisticated group. There aren't too many of those out there. So what are we thinking, or do we have any idea?
Well, yeah, that's all signs potentially point to Scattered Spider. You know, like I mentioned, the really good social engineering, and just the fact that it happened in June when other aviation industry, companies were getting hit by Scattered Spider, but they haven't. As of last night, I couldn't find any information on whether or not it was them, but signs kind of point there.
Got it. Hold on, Andre, what you got?
Yeah, so a few things that I saw. So very well, the information could have been segmented, but they could have also just been doing a great job in their PCI compliance and making sure their credit card information was actually stored correctly and encrypted. But, you know, it was interesting how the article said, you know, however, it did not expose, you know, customer account login credentials and actually credit card numbers. And this is important for companies to understand that, yes, it's absolutely 100%. You got to protect the credit card numbers, but you can't downplay, you know, especially if you're in that type of hospitality or airlines where there's, you know, passports, driver license, all of that information needs to be encrypted and protected. So another thing that I found interested is with assuming it is Scattered Spider, they've been relying a lot on social engineering more than malware. So it's so important now for you to make sure your employees are trained because there's social engineering where the bad guy will call in as tech support and try to get the employees to click on something and try to go through these, you know, team viewers, log me ins, or whatever they have to do to get into your system. So education and training is so important because if it is Scattered Spider and it was based on social engineering, this could have been 100% prevented.
Yeah, and one more kind of disturbing thing I kind of touched on just a little bit, and you made me think about it a little more, Andre, is I mentioned how these documents can be used like long term, but they could also be used to create like straight up like separate profiles. You know, I don't know if somebody could use this. I don't know. I was just thinking about that, like kind of like long term. What's that going to look like from a fraud perspective? You know, are they going to create whole other identities, whole other profiles? Like you've got a profile at blah, 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 and they just come and create a whole nother one right alongside of it. Anyway, that's another thing I was kind of thinking about as I look through this stuff.
Yep. And then we have, you know, what happens, you know, when travel brands trust gets breached like this. You know what I mean? The long-term ramifications of how people feel about, giving up their, because I mean, like you're up against it, right? Because you want to travel, you have to give up this information. You have to give people your passport and copies of your identification. And, I don't know if trust gets eroded if this continues to happen and people start to ask questions as to why certain companies or certain organizations need to have copies of this stuff, right? Or we learn where it's being shared on the back end as well after you give it up. So that's another interesting piece to this that I think we will all learn in the future, as our data gets shared and moved around, who actually gets their hands on it at the end of the day through these breaches. So,
yeah. And, you mentioned the storing of this information. So like the passport and the IDs, do they really need to keep that long term? I mean, the government has a database of that stuff. They check you into the TSA with that stuff. Shouldn't just showing it when you get your ticket and your boarding pass, shouldn't that just be really all they need with your passport and your ID? Like that was another thing that kind of shocked me. Here's like, why are they keeping all that data? Because they don't need it. Because yes, you have a ticket. Okay, boom, you verified yourself, delete it. And then the government entities are the ones that keep track of that stuff, right? So why are they keeping that long term? Why were they keeping it long term?
No idea, but that is a common thing that at least I see out there. And that's something that's really not well defined or regulated or enforced.
Right.
Any business can kind of choose in today's environment how long they want to keep your data. I mean, I have clients that, are what would be considered, digital hoarders in terms of like they just keep everything and they don't ever clean it out. Right. And they've been in business for 25 years or more. Right. And they have 25 years of data on their computer somewhere. Right. Or and that's just, why do you need an email from 1999? You don't, probably. Right. So it's things like that you see all over the place where you don't think like, hey, this won't be a big deal for me one day. And it ends up being a big deal for you one day because you get hacked. And now this information that's 25 years old is now causing a problem for you because it's now personal information that's been released on the dark web.
Yeah, but with cloud and things getting cheaper for terabytes of data, like look at Microsoft, how they can let you do archiving after you hit the 50 gigs and things like that. So the cloud is also making it easier for people to be like, yeah, just store it, versus back in the days, you would have to tell the client, hey, we got to upgrade your hard drive and we got to spend all this money to add an additional drive or whatever the case is. So convenience.
All right, Andre, this one is all you, buddy. This New South Wales government in Australia had a contractor upload, flood victims' personal data, including health details, straight into ChatGPT. You can't make this stuff up. Andre, what is happening here?
Well, I was first, I'll give a little backstory. So like you said, the contractor for the New South Wales in Australia, they basically uploaded this document that had people's phone numbers, health details, names, address, and it was 12,000 rows. So this is a lot of information. But I was surprised that this actually made the news because companies are literally doing this every day. So that was kind of why I was putting this article here, because I've seen it where we go in and we do audits or we just talking to people and, you hear the clients and see the clients literally uploading, financial information, sensitive information and so forth like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about is like, I'm just surprised this made the news.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, we're seeing this more and more. People just don't understand the threats of AI at all, right? And part one of the threats, and we're not going to get into all of them today, but it's something we can absolutely cover on the show, AI has been around long enough that we've seen many different misuses and or threat vectors result from AI, and it can be pretty eye-opening if you're not aware of it, right? And this is just one of those things. This is like that Microsoft one that I heard about, where, sorry, not Microsoft one, but where somebody had uploaded a bunch of Microsoft keys in the ChatGPT for some kind of an analysis, right? And that was eventually that information was stored by ChatGPT, and then later on somebody came along and asked ChatGPT, can't talk today, if you have any office keys or software keys stored in your memory, and they spit them out and they tested them and they worked. So you got to be careful what you put in this tool, because it's learning all the time, and depending on what version you're using and how you have it set, you could be exposing information, personal information just like this, to systems like ChatGPT.
Yeah, I could probably see it now where the boss was asking, man, John, how did you get this done so fast? And he's like, oh, I just put in ChatGPT and I did this, and it popped out things. But this is just so why it's so important. Again, going back on that training, using, empowering your employees to use the AI tools, but make sure that these tools have some type of access control, logging systems that could prevent these type of uploads.
Yeah, I just had a big discussion with somebody about this the other day, kind of another like tech person type thing. And they were saying like, oh yeah, like it's all, it's made anonymous and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not really how it works, because the ChatGPT is made to like kind of mimic the human brain. And, even if you memorize something, you don't remember every single little thing as you learn it. So the things, though, that are more unique have a higher chance, like a product key, like personal information about a flood, have a higher chance of just being remembered verbatim. So bottom line is, if companies are going to use AI, and they should, they're going to need some kind of like AI policy, like that just kind of sets the guidelines. Andre, you just kind of touched on this, but sets the guidelines on which AIs are okay to use for company data, which are not. I mean, and in the States, if this happened, this could be a potential HIPAA violation or FTC safeguards rule. Like, there's a lot of compliance things that could kick in and bite you in the butt if this happened in the States. So it's just something we need to be aware of, so we can prevent it from happening.
Yes, sir. I mean, 12,000 rows of sensitive data uploaded in the ChatGPT. Look, this isn't the only or first company to do this, right? I mean, this is happening all the time. It just hasn't been figured out yet or found out yet.
Yep.
It's really scary when it's government. I guarantee you this is probably happening in the U.S. by U.S. government employees, unless they've been provided with some kind of internal AI system already. I would imagine that there's people out there who are kind of taking on shadow AI and using their own tools to help them do their job and do things quicker or be more efficient about things. It's not happening just in Australia. Just hasn't been figured out yet or found out yet here in the US, right? So it's really scary, because government has a lot of data on a lot of people, right? And you don't want those organizations and entities running to AI tools and dumping information in there without understanding the risks of doing this. So the scary part for me, guys, with AI is it doesn't really matter if somebody it's not an access thing at this point. Once you put it into the prompt and hit enter, it's gone. And now it's owned by the world at that point, in most cases, that information. So do we think we are at a place right now where public agencies need to look? Every company, every organization that exists should have an AI usage policy in place right now. And if you don't, you're behind the eight ball, right? Taking it a step further, guys, I'm asking you both, should public agencies lock down AI entirely until they can handle data governance around this?
Yeah, absolutely. That means blocking, ChatGPT.com and all these other websites. That's what you have to do.
I would say yes and no, Brian. I mean, I've talked to several CTOs at different companies, and some have the kind of the mindset of let's block it all till we figure it out. Some have the mindset of let's get an AI usage policy, get everybody to attest to it, then we can kind of open it up. But I would say probably somewhere in there, like maybe you're blocking most of the AIs, or you're watching for AI usage, and then you're making sure that your employees are trained. I will tell you, there's a positive flip side to this kind of stuff, though, Brian. I personally like to ask, hey, when I'm like doing a prompt, hey, ChatGPT. Okay, sorry, I'm using the air quotes. This sounds kind of corny, but hey, ChatGPT, what are other business owners talking to you about ... And or what are other people doing in their marketing plans about ... And I guarantee you, I've had some, like I one time I got a marketing plan back, Brian, and I was like, man, somebody paid some huge money for this, and then started talking to ChatGPT about it, and now here it is, free for me to use and to implement. So there is a kind of an upside to that, which is also still part of the downside, which is something to keep in mind.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things that so many thoughts just run through my head when we talk about this kind of stuff. And I envision this world in the future that only because the AI CEOs are talking about this whole agentic AI that we're moving into eventually, right? And you can already see with generative AI. If you've ever trained a model or anything like that, or tried to train an agent to do work, you have to train it and give it the same information you would give a human. So we're not kidding around when we say you have to give your AI security and awareness training, right? Because if you're going to be allowing them to do functions of an employee, like click on links, visit websites, click on emails, that activity could literally be done by a computer, not a human, and cause ransomware or cause some kind of breach. And we're not thinking about that yet, but that is coming.
Yep.
So I'm just laying it out there for you that like some of your training models are going to have to include like, hey, should I click on this link or not that was just sent to me by my other AI agent coworker? Right? Because these are all going to be trusted by default. And when hackers figure out how to manipulate those agents, then organizations are going to be in trouble. Yep. And that's the concern.
Yeah, very true. Similar to like when Microsoft Teams, when hackers found that if you send a message or call somebody through Microsoft Teams, their guardrails are going to be down. It's the same concept with AI. AI told me, so it must be true. Let me take this script or whatever the output is, and let me see what happens.
Yep, definitely true. So we'll keep everybody up to date on what's happening here. But just another example of how AI is going to be impacting businesses here in the future. And really, as I said, companies need to get ahead of this right now and get that AI policy in place so people understand what it is they're allowed to use, what once you allow them to use a tool, what they can actually put into it and what they can't. These are very critical things that companies need to get ahead of right now. So
we'll call this one a copy and paste breach.
What is it?
We'll call it a copy and paste breach.
There you go. I like it. All right, let's bring this podcast home this week with a story that ties this all together. Ransomware, and I always like pulling out these stats that just back up everything that I believe and say about businesses and how seriously they take cybersecurity. And now we have a new interesting report, new trends in businesses, where it seems, guys, and I'm kind of making my own opinion here out of this article, but it seems to me that not only is cybersecurity protections and defense is optional for companies, but so is cyber insurance and the protections around that. And we have some interesting data that backs that up, as we see, according to a mid-year cyber risk report, claims are down 53% compared to last year, but ransomware attacks are up. And we can talk about why claims are down here in a minute. And if you think back to a couple episodes ago when Randy and I dissected a ransomware chat, you might have some clues as to why claims might be down. The average loss per incident is up 17%, meaning when companies do decide to exercise their right to bring in cyber insurance, it's usually because the number is astronomical and the company, it just can't afford to pay what these guys are asking for. And they have no ability to get the number down. So they got to use cyber insurance. Ransomware now drives roughly 3/4 of all losses to the when companies get hit by attackers. And again, they're not encrypting, and the insurance companies are backing up what we've been saying on this show for a long time. Attackers are not encrypting data anymore. They're using AI to profile their victims. They read your cyber insurance policy limits and they price the ransom accordingly. Yeah, that's right. Ransomware just got actuarial on you, right? Meaning they're making calculated requests based on what they're seeing in your policies and how much you have in your company. And we covered that in that episode that we did, Randy, where they basically were, saying, we know what you have. We know the numbers, and we're going to negotiate based on that. And one very interesting trend that businesses seem to be playing the game with cyber criminals on, guys, which is scary, is like, oh, we'll ask for a number that's just below what your cyber insurance would cover. That's a number that makes us happy. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to report it. You don't have to file a claim. And you just give us like kind of some extra money that you have laying around, and they just got to figure out what that number is, right? How much do you have in cash reserves? And that's the game they played in that chat that we went through, Randy, that you brought to the table, right? Yep. That's exactly what they did. They brought the number down significantly, but it was a number they were willing to pay without having to exercise cyber insurance. Yep.
It was a lot.
Right. But at the end of the day, they still got paid, right? Yep. So it keeps the problem alive, in my opinion, doing this, because now we don't have ransomware statistics funneling into insurance companies. So we really don't have we're moving into a place where we know less and less and less, because nobody wants to run to the authorities and tell them that they got hacked. And nobody wants to run to their insurance agent and tell them they got hacked. And the criminals are perfectly fine playing that game with businesses.
And they don't want to tell their customers they got hacked.
Right. They don't want to tell anybody. This is all about sweeping it under the rug, because we're not doing cybersecurity the right way. So when we get hit, we gotta cover it up. So when does covering up become a felony when you're a business in the United States? Covering up a cyber attack?
Well, if you have some type of compliance or regulation and you're supposed to report it.
Correct. But we know that most regulation is not enforced. That's why nobody's afraid of HIPAA. That's why nobody's afraid of CMMC right now, because they don't see the enforcement. So until that game changes with enforcement, these business owners and these CEOs, CFOs, everybody, the C-suite is willing to play chicken with this whole game, with cyber criminals, with the regulators, with the cyber insurance companies. They're all willing to play chicken.
Yeah, it's a calculated risk. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sorry. I'm gonna hold that thought for a minute.
Hold it. You don't think,
it down.
you don't think they're ready to play chicken? So
it's like 3 minutes ago. Yeah, well, no, when you said play chicken, it caused a train wreck in my brain, and I lost everything that we were thinking of. No, you asked the question, when does it become a felony? And then we talked about how some of the laws aren't being enforced. But you know what is being enforced is the lawyers coming back around and suing. And so it might be a felony if you're withholding it to keep your stock prices from falling. But if a lawyer catches wind of that, you're most likely opening yourself up to a lawsuit. And then the law is not going to matter so much. It's going to be more of a matter of, did you cause damage to these shareholders or whatever? I'm just saying you bring that aspect into it, and, maybe the law's kind of slow to enforce, but a lawyer's not going to be slow to hop on it if there's a potential lawsuit. So I think the C-level needs to know that that's a real thing, and that's happened multiple times where, they didn't go about it just right as far as that goes, the way they let it out, the way they didn't let it out, the way they said it when they did, and that opened them up to a lawsuit. Which, by the way, in Texas, September 1, we had a safe harbor law go into effect that if your company is doing certain things and they're doing it the right way, and you can prove that, you can't be sued in a civil court by lawyers over damages. And that's a great way to bring around compliance.
Yeah, that's a good law.
Well, it's probably got a lot of crap in it as well, but overall, yes.
So because a lot of these, what's happening though is a lot of these businesses are opting not to continue with their insurance cyber protections for two reasons. Number one, that the terms tighten every year, and it's getting harder and harder to prove that you're doing this stuff if you're not doing it, right? And they want proof that you're doing it, no longer, an application that you just, check off some boxes and then they give you a number and you pay that number and hope you never have to use it, right? The other side of it is if you do have to use it and any of those boxes were checked incorrectly, you're getting a reduced payment or not paid at all, right? So in some industries, we're seeing payments skyrocket as a result because they're just a highly targeted area. And if you want cyber insurance, it's going to be very expensive. So businesses are opting not to buy it for those reasons. And then some industries flat out can't even get it because the insurance industry has just decided we're not going to offer those businesses cyber insurance. So, the real safety net here for businesses as it's playing out is just to do cybersecurity the right way and have a strong cyber protection plan in place and a resiliency plan in place, right? Make sure your backups are good. Make sure you've tested them. Make sure you can recover them. Make sure you have a staff that knows what to do and how to do it and how to respond. So you're not panicking in the event that you do get hit one day or something bad does happen, right? Even a simple, something as simple as a business email breach, right? What does your team do? What do they know how to do? What do they know what to do and who to contact when their email gets compromised by somebody or they see something fishy going on in their email? Rule was created. Emails were moving around, right? These are, if you don't have the right protections in place, these are a lot of times how those things manifest themselves. As an employee notices something's not right with their email, and then they have to do what? Just sit there and, hope or, call somebody, right? And if they don't know who to call, the length of that usually ends up being long enough to where a lot of damage can be done. So any last thoughts, guys, before we wrap up the show here?
Yeah, there was one more statistic that was interesting. It said 74% of businesses provide training, but almost half say it's ineffective. And then it continued to say, but human error remains the top cause of breaches.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Well, it's just lazy people. I mean, it's like, how many people think that they want to get in shape, but the gym they have, the membership they have is ineffective. You know what I mean? it's not the gym that's ineffective. It's the person who's, has the gym membership who's ineffective at using that to get themselves in shape, right? So it's the same thing here, right? If you're getting training and you're just checking boxes and you're not really paying attention to the content and you're just trying to get through it, whatever your training is, right? Some of it you can just watch a video. Some of it you can just sign in and say you did it, right? It doesn't mean you actually watched it. So it's very interesting to kind of understand that dynamic, because we know, even in our own business, across all of our clients, if we look, I would say that getting people to consistently take security and awareness training is a struggle, right? It's not 100% across the board, right? And it should be, right? That's what most compliance and most frameworks require, is that everybody does regular training, not some people, not 80% of the company, everybody. That means 100%, right? And I would venture to say that not one company that we support would hit that benchmark on a consistent basis. So,
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it for today. 3 stories, 3 lessons. Breaches hit, trust first, not tech. That's one lesson learned for today that I took away. AI tools can leak faster than you can type ChatGPT. And then the ransomware economy isn't dying. It's ever evolving. So, Andre, Randy, any final thoughts, takeaways for today before we get out of here?
Don't just check the box.
Yeah. And it's always a fun time in the cybersecurity world.
Yes, it is. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate your inputs. As always, great having the full crew back, and appreciate everyone for tuning in, hitting the subscribe button wherever you can, drop us a review, and share the show with someone who still thinks AI stands for almost invincible. So if you want to keep us going here on the show, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/security squawk. Remember, stay alert, stay secure, and we'll see you in the next week's episode of Security Squawk. Take care, everyone.